Hey guys, what's up? It's Sla, coming to you with another episode of Car Rides with Sla, your one-stop shop destination for all things transportation. Now, I'm trying to think where we left off. I think I was talking about how even though I am very good and sufficient at talking to the camera what am I trying to say? I'm very good at talking to the camera and talking to myself, but I still feel like it's only 80%, and I feel like I truly come out and come alive in the company of another. But I'm thinking I really need to try to change that. Like, I hope maybe by trying to force it over time, I can kind of get to a point where that 110% that I'm at when I'm talking to somebody is like always the case. You know what I mean? Like, we're always there and stuff. So that's kind of the idea. I think that is the goal. I don't know if it's going to be this episode or really, but that's something, I guess, in the back of my mind. In the back of my mind, I want to feel like I am speaking to somebody and trying to channel that company, give myself the company. And I think that is going to be the powerful step. And I will consult with the evil AI about this and see what they think. So what I wanted to talk about today was I just thought about something else, but then I think I forgot. But I was just thinking about expectations, and I'm coming to this understanding that, because I was thinking about expectations, and I was thinking about my usual talking about expectations, which is how I think that, expectations are a good thing. I think the advice to reduce expectations, etc., is very stupid. I think high expectations are a very good thing. And that is very contrary to what most people will tell you or say. And, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about how we were going to get into that. But then I thought of this new groundbreaking thing, which is that I just think most people, they probably don't really expect anything. I think most people their thoughts may be somewhat limited, and their expectations are just kind of limited. And most people just kind of, there's not a lot going on up there, you know what I'm saying? Which is why I think it's hard for me, because there is so much going on up in here, to interact with other people, where it's like I have everything mapped out, I have things planned out, and I kind of know where the expectation should be. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of people, they don't even know what the expectation should be, right? Like, they might just not really conceive of like what should or shouldn't be. They may just kind of do stuff, and they kind of see life not as facts, but as a, random mess of just, oh, well, I just want to do this, and they just want to do that, right? Not like, oh, based on etiquette, this is how I should behave in a social situation, or these are the expectations that I should have. You get what I'm trying to say? I just don't think people think like that. And I'm realizing that, just this morning, because I mean, it really wasn't something I ever gave much thought, but I just think people don't. They just don't. It's not that they don't have expectations, or they do have expectations, just nothing's going on. There's nothing dawning on them. Now, to get into my usual spiel, because that's never been recorded yet, although, hopefully we can get recording with the, I mean, the carvc is just like, I guess this is just where we're at, because the microphone, you know, when I'm at home, there's not really a lot of time to record. I'm either just waking up or tired from the workday. But the carvc it's so easy. It fits. I mean, I have to drive to work, right? So there's like, I'm always going to be able to do the carvc, no matter what. You see what I'm saying? So, that's why I think for now it just kind of makes sense to do things the way they fall easiest. Now, I know the microphone's not great, and I want to get a better mic, and I'm looking into that. But, yeah, anyways, back to what we were talking about with expectations. That's the truth of it. I think people, it's not that they have low or high. I just think they aren't necessarily there, and people just kind of do things. Now, on the other hand, where am I at? Oh my gosh. On the other hand, it's just stuff happened because like I'm driving. It always like makes me lose my train of thought when something happens, because I like focus on what I'm seeing. Yeah, I don't think it's none. I don't think it's low. I don't think it's high. I think it's minimal. Right? I think, because I noticed this kind of when like I'm first starting working, like I'm thinking about what if something happens with my car and I'm not able to come to work. Like I don't have any paid time off yet. So that doesn't really make any sense to me. Like what if, I mean, you know, sometimes people go through like emergencies or things happen where you have to take time off from work or whatever. And, like what? But it's just supposed to like, to me, it doesn't seem right. Like, I think you do need to kind of start with a stock of paid time off. Just because like, again, I mean, it's not to blow. Maybe you could make it so like, you don't have direct control over the paid time off, but like your job does or something like that. But that's just like very unfair, because it just comes down to luck. Like if somebody broke their leg and then they have to be out of work for a while, that person's probably gonna get kind of shunned or like a demerit, right? Low key. I feel like that's kind of how people move now, if you get what I'm saying. And to me, that's something that's, or again, what if your car just doesn't work for a morning? You can't come to work. Then what? Like, I feel like that's kind of what I'm talking about, where with people's expectations, they're not well thought out. They're very like, okay, like your job just expects that there's 100% chance that you can get to work when there isn't. Now, granted, I guess this is another example of me overthinking, because, I mean, obviously I've always been able to get to work, but the whole point is it's possible stuff can happen, and I think that the world should really be more understanding of that, as opposed to like this like very like cold and strange way of operating. But what I'm alluding it to is I still think people have expectations. They're just very random. I don't think people's expectations are rooted in any kind of objective. I think they're just rooted very, very emotionally. And it's just kind of random things that happen to come up. Because my common argument for expectations when it comes to social expectations is like, you know, with people being flaky and stuff, and social expectations and all that, and then people just like say, oh, you should just lower them, you know, you shouldn't get your hopes up about somebody showing up when they're supposed to. Like, it's just all silly to me, because I'm realizing that there's a bit of a hypocrisy going on, because I'm talking about when I say people being flaky, I don't mean if there's a valid reason. Yeah, because there's hypocrisy, because it's like you're criticizing companies for having 100% expectation, but then you have 100% expectation for others. But I wanted to articulate that that is not exactly what I was saying. So what I was trying to get at is, like, I would be very forgiving if somebody, had an expectation and couldn't fulfill it for whatever reason because something legitimate happened. And if you communicate that, hey, sorry, something came up, I'm going to be busy now, I can't make it. Okay. Now, if it becomes like a pattern, then that's kind of weird. Something's up. Kind of seems like you could be lying. You're not putting in the effort, obviously. But no, of course. I mean, if somebody communicated with me and told me, hey, yeah, I can't make it, this is why I can't make it, it's all good. That is my expectation. So I don't really expect like 100% reliability. That is not my expectation. But I do expect 100% reliability if there isn't a valid excuse. Now, of course, this gets into a whole other thing, because a lot of people may think that it's a valid excuse that they just don't feel like talking, and now they want to like scroll on TikTok or whatever, because that's just what they feel like. And I don't think that's not a valid excuse. And I'm not really sure what type of person would be like that, but I'm sure they exist, where it's like they're very, I think it comes into, I think the issue, and I'm just kind of putting this together now, is it comes into a major lack of planning skills and awareness of one's emotional state, right? Because, like, if you know who you are and what you want, you would not tell people stuff like that. Like, you wouldn't tell a person, oh yeah, I'll be there at 5 p.m. only to, by the time 5 p.m. actually rolls around, now you're not now you don't feel like doing it anymore. But you thought you were going to do it when you said it. Let's say earlier in the day at 12 p.m. you thought you were going to want to do it, because people are that out of touch with themselves. I think that is really the main reason. I wasn't even really thinking about that too much before, because it's like a lot of people are like that. I mean, they want something in the moment, but then maybe in a couple hours they don't want it anymore, and they don't have the foresight to see that that's how it would be. I think that's a very good point. I can't believe I haven't thought of that before. Like, it's not like somebody's necessarily intentionally flaking on me, but it's like they thought they did think they wanted something, but then it turns out they don't. And so that is a very good point. And I think that issue is exacerbated by the way society is now, with things like TikTok, instant gratification, very quick, right? You don't really need, your ability to know yourself is so low. It's so low, right? Like, your chances of having emotional awareness and understanding of yourself and how you think and feel is incredibly rare nowadays, because people are not typically in noise-free environments. Like right now, what I'm doing is noise-free. For you, it's not, as the listener, because you're playing my voice, but I'm saying, like, I'm not doing anything. There's no, stimulation right now. I'm not listening to music. I'm not listening to a podcast. I'm talking, I'm getting my thoughts on paper, and I'm navigating through things. By doing this the amount of times that I have, it definitely builds and expands on my knowledge of myself and how I feel and all that kind of stuff. So I think that is a very relevant point, and I can't believe I didn't really directly think of it before. Because it is so true. I don't think people purposely are like that. I just think that they can't. They can't. They don't know what they want. I think a lot of people are like that now. And it's scary. And I think it has to do with the same thing I said, social media and having algorithms and stuff kind of do everything for you. And so when you have to answer, what do you like to do? You don't know, because there's your feed is just hands you stuff all the time. You never have to really look for anything. And so that's just what people do. They're bored and then they just go on Instagram or TikTok. And what's destructive about that is it's destructive in avoiding thought and avoiding potential hobbies that you would have picked up that maybe were slower or more meaningful, right? Because if you don't have anything to do and you're bored, you're going to be in more of a long thinking type of thing to try to solve that boredom. And if you instantly just jump to short form content, for example, it's gonna stimulate and it's gonna get rid of your boredom, but now you're no longer planning. Now you're no longer thinking about the future, and you're just kind of existing without aging, as I see it. Now of course, I am realizing as I'm saying this, you do on short form content, you could potentially see a video or an image that does lead you to something that you ends up becoming a hobby, and then that kind of nullifies my point. But I don't think that really works the same, and it's still coming from suggestion. It's not coming from internally what you're not really making the choice. It's just you happen to see it. But then again, isn't that everything? I mean, usually people would only do things because they happen to see things somewhere. I guess maybe my point is not fully making sense, but it's okay. I think it makes enough sense to where it's viable as a perspective, and the gist of what I'm saying, of course. Now, I'm trying to remember what I was originally going to get at, because I keep going down all these other newfound things that I'm thinking of. So the main thing is when I talk about expectations, the idea to live life without expectations is silly. I mean, when you go into a food store, you expect that you're going to be safe. You expect that somebody isn't going to rob you at gunpoint, right? When you go to drive to work in the morning, you expect that you're going to get there safe and sound. You expect that you're going to get there on time. Now, if somebody doesn't do that, I guess maybe you could see that there's merit to that, because it's if something bad happens, it's just kind of you shrug it off. Oh well, you don't really care that much. But I think that's kind of a ridiculous way to live. It almost borders on semi-anxious or paranoia, because you're oh well, I may not make it to work this morning, when really, why would you even think that? I mean, if it I think that's the whole, that's not, I'm sorry, I'm processing all this stuff in my head, and I'm It's so fast in my head. I'm trying to figure out how to. I just think, again, it borders on like paranoia and anxiety. Like, that's what I think. I don't really think it makes any sense to expect that something bad could go wrong. Because then, here's the main understanding I'm coming to. Because you could say, well, if you don't expect that high, then you won't get disappointed. And that's true. But I think that disappointment comes more so from mental maturity than expectation, right? Like, if somebody is emotionally sound, they could probably handle something bad happening, but you don't have to, like, you shouldn't have to mentally prepare for that. Although I'm saying that, and I mean, even myself, like, I do like to mentally prepare. It is nice to know in advance when something would happen. But you would never know anyway with something like, you know, if somebody got in an accident with you or something. Or if you know, your car stopped working, like, I think that's the point I'm getting at. They're all things that you can't control. So there's no reason to expect that they're going to go bad. Like, I don't really, that just doesn't make any sense, because you're not going to win. Like, even if you do have these like low expectations, like, yeah, well, that's just life. I mean, I could start my car and it could not work. You could have those expectations, but like, I feel like at that point it does more harm than good, because it's entirely possible that everything's always going to work out, right? And then in that case, now it's silly because you had that low expectation and it was kind of for nothing. Now people are going to say, well, you know, you have the low expectation, and then if the car always works, now you've like exceeded it, which is nice, because it always feels good to be higher than what you expected, but it never feels good to be lower, yada yada. But I think, I don't know, I still think like there's merit to what I'm saying, where we should have high expectations for things. It would build a better society, easily would build a better society. Now, granted, I think the important thing with this is forgiveness, and how forgiveness is definitely like important, you know, to have like chill, like nice society. You want people to forgive you for things, but at the same time, I think the argument could be made that if a society was too forgiving, you could start to see productivity fall, or, you know, people not really care as much, because sadly people are motivated by fear. I think in some ways they're motivated by people being too hard on them or giving them pressure, right? I think what I've seen in people is that when they're given an easier option, even if there's a better option that's more difficult, a lot of people take the easy road, especially if you were raised that way. You know, if you had parents who were always there for you and stuff, you could just take advantage, and a lot of people do. I feel like I see it very often, where people just take advantage of comfort. They don't really think about what they should or shouldn't be doing, I guess. That's what I think. So yeah, I think the expectations conversation may be one with nuance, but I think for the most part, high expectations are not a bad thing, because it all comes into like what I think is stress management more so than anything. Because like, yeah, that is the main problem, the main issue with increasing expectations, is you would have a higher stress rate technically, because again, and that's not really good. Like, that's not good for people. So I think it's important to have very high expectations, but you do need an element of understanding, you know, not to have really high intense expectations, but be abrasive about it. Not have intensely high expectations, but throw an incredible temper tantrum if things don't go your way, right? But to still have them, to still have guidelines out for people. Because that's really what we do. I mean, you know, I should be able to expect and go out and know that the other people on the road are going to be driving safely and carefully. That should be the expectation, but it's not. At this point, I think people have just kind of given up and figure, yeah, well, people don't drive right in America, and that's just how it is. That's really what I think it's come to. And I don't think that makes any sense. Like, there should be accountability for things like that. I do think it depends on the thing, I guess. But then again, even with stress, like when you're thinking about how it works and stuff, your body adapts. Your body adapts to stress. And if, you know, something is overwhelming when you're 20, then by the time you're 25, it may not really be overwhelming anymore, which is kind of where it gets to this building idea of pressure and expectations, where, yeah, I mean, when you're a child, maybe it's hard to stay quiet when you're in church, right? Because you get bored, or not touch things in the food store. Like, you know, when I was a kid, I always wanted to touch the glass jelly jars, and, you know, one time, I think I was young, I was like 3 or 4, and then, like, my dad would always tell me not to, and I still would. I would still always want to touch them and, like, play with them and stuff. And then one day, like, I broke it. Like, I just dropped it on the ground and it broke. And then, I mean, obviously the guy was pretty nice about it, but the person at the store didn't, like, charge my dad or anything like that. But that's the thing. I mean, it's difficult, right? To, you know, I'm equating it to that stage in life when you're a child, you're kind of learning the way of the world. And a lot of times people instill fear and stuff into you. Like, oh yeah, you can't just walk in a store and, like, start touching a bunch of breakables. You can't do this. You can't do that. Because in a child's mind, you just want to have fun. You're not thinking about all these rules or physical constraints or potential issues. It doesn't really come up, right? In the child's mind, the child is just doing stuff and trying to enjoy. And that is like a whole thing, right? I don't know. You have to, and that's painful. Growing up is painful. But now what basically happens, and I think I'm speaking to this from experience too, is you have people who are getting older, but their maturity level is not there. Because, like, I never really had to, past a certain point, grow up too much. My school was pretty chill. I didn't get bullied. Nothing really super bad happened. So I didn't really have to adapt to society's rules. And a lot of people see that as this, like, really deep, mystical thing, like, to be free and to not have to conform to others, and in the hyper-individual present that we're in, that is kind of something that's looked up to. But it's honestly just a bunch of nonsense. Like, lack of social conformity leads to an increase in the chance of loneliness, which is the most destructive thing. So there's not really any ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is just how it is. And I'm trying to think of where it's always merging. I always, like, focus. Wow. I don't know, this guy's kind of being, like, crazy around me. But anyways, Anyways, I don't know where we were. That's a shame. That is a shame. What were we talking about? Like expectations, and then it was getting into another topic that I just have like no idea what I was even talking about. I know I've said this before, but that is kind of the issue. Like, so much is so automatic when I talk. Like, it's easy for me to forget because I'm almost like I'm talking, but something's just coming over me. Like, I don't know, you know, like then he asks me like, oh, how do you do it? I shrug. I don't know how I do this. It's just something that just like began to happen. Well, actually, the first memories I really have of it is I would see like Let's Plays on YouTube of Pokemon, and I wanted to do that a lot. I really liked it. I thought it was super cool, and I wanted to do Let's Plays too. And basically, I thought I would practice, and to practice I would pretend, right? When I would be playing the game, I would just pretend that I was recording, and I would try to talk while I was playing the game and sort of mimic and mirror what I had seen on YouTube, right? That was like the idea. And I think that built the skills a little bit. Of course, though, there was something always there, because if there wasn't something always there, then, you know, it wouldn't have got as far as it has now with my ability. But that is how it started. You know, like I did that a lot. I would be talking and, you know, basically trying to pretend and mimic other people doing Let's Plays. And I tried to record some too, but sadly I don't really think I have any of that footage anymore, because I, you know, deleted it or whatever. We're also very close. Like, I made very good time today. Like, unusually good time. I wonder if I'm like driving faster because I'm talking and not really paying attention as much, but we're almost here like too early. That's like kind of crazy. I mean, it's not going to be too early, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like, we have to stop the thing now. It's only like 33 minutes. That is kind of crazy to me. Because I think I usually try to go 50 or 55, but I think I was going 60 for a lot of it. And maybe that made a difference. But I also think there's a luck component too. I don't know that, you know, it's just because of that minor difference. Because I always kind of have seen the speed thing as not really being that consequential. But anyways, it's been a blast, but now it's time to put that in the past. And it's been Schla with Car Rise with Schla. And I guess I will see you for the evening shift, unless something comes up and somebody wants to talk, you know, because that's usually how we roll with it. All right, bye Schla, bye Schla.